Welcome back to Oneself. My name is Stephen Marr. With me always, is Adam Bartleman. Folks, part of our Find the Other series, we're very excited to talk to Daniel Lansdowne today. Daniel's a friend of Adam's. It's got a cool story, so we're going to dive into it. But recently, Dan, Adam mentioned that you kind of went on a 4-day vision quest, and you're big in that kind of the sweat lodge community. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, how was that experience, and any takeaways from that?
It's probably been the most influential in my life.
Wow.
The fast and the lodge are kind of two different things. I mean, they're, yes, connected, but they're very, it's a very different experience. The lodge is sort of a weekly thing. I mean, not anymore because the fire band's on, but it's a weekly thing that you just kind of show up and I mean, you're supposed to go a little bit early. You do a little bit of work, blah, blah, blah. You put in, contribute to the community. 4 rounds of hot rocks and good times and some good songs and some good singing and some good people. And it gets hot. It gets challenging. You know, you're there for a reason. It's not easy. Like it's not easy. It's very challenging. You know, we've all been to a sauna or something like that. Just amplify that by, 50 and dark and cramped quarters. The point is, you show up, you suffer a little bit, you take some stuff home with you just to show up a little bit better in day-to-day life. All incredible people. It gets me because I just got back from a weekend with these people. Nothing special, just I want to say a cottage, but it's not a cottage. It's a massive, beautiful cabin, beautiful, bigger than most people's houses, and right on the lake. And these are all my people. They're the community. They hold it together. They're like the main pillars of the local community here, and they've been given permission and I can't think of the word, but it's been handed down by true leaders or indigenous. I don't know what you want to call them, leaders, chiefs. I don't know the proper wording. I don't think it matters. They're just good people. That to me, it doesn't matter. And they're all just showing up in a good way. And I've learned so much from them. And I'm getting I'm trying to hold back some emotion, which is interesting because
It's had an impact, clearly. Yeah. A positive.
Well, yeah. And they're just like, they've become family. Like what I lack in Gabor Mate talks a lot about the opposite of addiction is community, and I believe that. It's simple to sit with and to be. When you find a crew that are just genuinely good people that are just genuinely showing up in a good way with nothing asked or needed in return, it's life-changing. And my world that I experience is full of ulterior motives and what can I get from this? And, just sadly, the world in general. And everybody's out for number one. And these people are genuinely out for the community and to support one another. Okay, that's enough. Let me compose myself. The fast was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I've done a lot of psychedelics. I've done a lot of, that kind of looking in deep. But I mean, there's an interesting thing on I heard a while ago, and if you think you're not addicted to something, fast from it. And it couldn't be more true. I was only going to do 2 nights, and I showed up when everybody went in on Thursday, and we did a little ceremony. And I was like, you know what? I'm here. I'm set up. Why don't I just stay? Like, why would I go all the way home? And I was living an hour away, so it's a 2-hour drive, and I had to get up in the morning and come back. And I was like, why don't I just stay? And so I stayed, and I did the full 3 nights. And first night you kind of sleep. You go in with nothing. Like you have a tarp and a cover And that's really it. I mean, you've got some clothes and stuff like that. No food, no water for 3 days. My total was 66 hours. And it's funny because the food and the water it doesn't even come into play. It's just the mind. And your brain is just going, you should go home. You should go home. You could go home. You could come back. Nobody would even notice, and it's just the constant, why am I here? Why am I here? And resorting back to your prayer and resorting back to your ties and everything. And the beauty thing about doing the fast is there's a lot that goes into it prehand. You make yourself, there's 4 directions. I don't know if you guys know anything about it, but there's 4 different directions, and there's 4 different colors, and you tie yourself depending on who's putting you up and putting you in, ties to represent your area. So you tie off your area. There's 4 corner sticks and everything. And this is your area for the next little while. This is your fasting area. You can set an area so you can walk around but that's your area. You don't leave unless you have to go to the bathroom. And the lead up to it is you do all this prayer and you do this tying all your ties and getting ready. So you're going in with intent. It's not just let's go and chill and hang in the forest. So you're pre-gaming it before you get there. And then you're left with your mind, really that's it. The first day you kind of sleep and it's okay because you're tired and we're all tired. And then you get that opportunity to relax. And then it's like, wow, okay. But then, the second day and your body starts getting sore and you're laying on the ground and, I'm a little bit older than you guys. So, this stuff gets a little sore and it's not as easy as it used to be. And by the third day, you can't sleep anymore. And literally time is just seconds. And it's just like, you're just, the mental fortitude to keep bringing it back to the center of like, why am I here? What am I doing? What is my goal in this? What do I want to get out of this? And I don't really think you can get a stronger connection with, God or creator or whatever you want to call it, Buddha or whatever. It doesn't matter. As long as it's, non-harming, then it doesn't matter, in my opinion. But that connection is there. It's always there. It's not, doesn't waver on, what you do. You've talked, I laugh a lot about some of your stories, Stephen, because mine's similar. And I, grew up in the Catholic Church and oof, yeah, anyway, different topic. So why are you there? What are you doing? And you just have to constantly, continually bring yourself back. There's a lot of drumming and saging and stuff like that, just to sort of recenter yourself. And, it's not so much, I'll be honest, that some of it, the last little bit is like, you're just literally counting the time. You're counting the minutes just to get out of there and be done with it because you're just so done. But the point is, for me, not anybody, that I did it. And I came out of this, and this is what got me, this is what is the beauty thing about this community. It's a Sunday morning. It's a long weekend. It was May long weekend. It was not a great weekend. It was horrible weather. It was cold, rainy, and wet. And you come out of this and because you're not supposed to interact with people right away until you finish the ceremony. And you come out and you're exhausted and you're tired. You're carrying your bag and everything. And then you go into the lodge and you do a round, and then you come out and you're like, you can sort of greet people. But there's people there that, it's 9:00 on a Sunday morning on a long weekend, and they're there just simply to show up and support.
Wow.
That's something that I've never, not that I haven't had friends and I haven't had good people in my life, but it's a different level of like, we're here, we're proud of you. You did an amazing job. And these people have walked with me through, I don't want to say, well, yeah, through addiction, and it's recent for me over the last couple of years because I just, what do I say? I mean, I don't know what the swearing is on here, but some shit things happened. And
yeah, of course.
It was turned upside down drastically in a short period of time. And I couldn't deal with it. And I mean, I don't know if there's such thing as situational addiction, but I know if that situation didn't happen, I wouldn't have gotten wired on code. So anyway, they've seen me through all that. That's the point. Sorry, I'm a little sidetracked. They've seen me through all that, and they've walked through me and through my rough days. And I mean, I can tell some really bad stories, but I don't think it's necessary. But I would show up even in my darkest times, and even when I was, how do I say this, wired on blow, I would stop for a couple hours to show up to the lodge because I knew that there was something in there for me, and I knew that there was a pull there. And I'm rangy and just not in a good way, but I would go, and they would be like, "Oof, okay, let's keep our distance from this guy, but let's welcome him in." And it was always kind and loving, and then over the last little while, I've gotten better, and I've gotten better, and I've gotten better, and they see this, and they are like, "Dude, like it's it's like it's incredible to see where you've come from and how you show up." And one of the greatest honors for me is to be able to do the fire and the rocks, because there's a whole process that goes into it. You set it up in advance, and you go in and it's a big fire. These are big rocks. You got to cook them, and they got to get hot. And so I've been given the opportunity to show up and do that. And there's nothing better than, it's a hard day. It's not easy. It's a tough day. It's hot. It's weather dependent, but it's like one of the most rewarding things, because you're doing all the pre-work so that people can just show up and have everything done. And it's behind the scenes. I'm not posting it. I'm not going, look at me, look what I've done. It's the simple, humble, I put in a good day's work for the people. And the people that I love, it's not just random. Well, sometimes it is, but even that, they, everybody, if you show up to a lodge, it's kind of like an AA meeting. You don't end up in an AA meeting, just checking things out, there's usually a reason behind it. And, same sort of thing with the lodge. You end up at a lodge in a good way. Somebody has directed you in that way. And, I've learned so much from it. I think I got sidetracked from my point there, but,
it's all good, man. It's like you're talking about the Gabor Mate quote about the opposite of addiction is community. Not only do you experience receiving it, but you're experiencing like giving as well. Giving it to community. So that's powerful.
Well, and I think one of the coolest things is that, I've heard some of how you both have spent your lives and your childhoods, and briefly touched on some of those, both of your stories. And I've known Adam in the past for some stuff, and we've talked a bit. But, I got this kid, and she gets to come with me, and she is so welcomed and so loved by these people. And, she's 10. And I mean, at 10, I was not in a good way. And this is a much harder world. Of course, she has nothing to base it off of, but it's a much more challenging world than it was 40 years ago. And, she's got this community of people that, love her and talk to her and show up for her. And, they got a dress made for her, because there's a whole thing to it. And if I had even a glimpse of that, who knows? I mean, there's no way to say that my life would be different, or, this and that, but it's just and it's not only my daughter, it's, there's young boys. I went away this weekend with my buddy and his kids, and they have grown up in the lodge, and they're now 19 and 16, and incredible boys, just good men. And
yeah,
that's the whole point. Like, one of the guys says in the lodge that, well, there's many things I said, but one of the great things that I love is I'm pitiful and weak and I know nothing. And for a while I was like, what are you talking about, man? Like, I didn't get it. And now it's like, it couldn't be more powerful, it couldn't be more true. There's a vast world out there that I know very little about. And I am only a blip in the system, but I do my best and show up in a good way when I can. And well, that's every day. I've learned to suffer a little bit to make myself stronger, to make myself more, I finished a fast in May, and another horrible thing happened at the end of May. And I just was like, okay, I'm ready. I don't even think or question about escape anymore. It's all about, okay, how do I get through this? Like, how do I just, not get through it, but like, how do I barge into this and sit with it and ease it and just welcome it. Instead of like, oh no, I can't deal with that, because it's just such a shift. And I've always looked for something or someone to save me. Especially with the plant medicine, it was always like, the next one will be the one or yeah. I remember my buddy's like, you're always looking for something. And then I was just looking for me, I just couldn't find me. And, being sober and sitting with self and really just stripping it down to bare bones, I have had no choice but to look at my life and my existence and my, my life, my fault. I take full responsibility for everything that's happened. A lot of people don't like that. Again, I can't speak for anybody else, but it's tough to look at your shit. It's tough to what's my part in this? And part of that is AA, and part of that is the lodge, and part of that is just basic spirituality and growth. And I love it. It's got me to a place where I've never been happier. I've never had less. I was saying to Adam a while ago that I've never had less, and I've never been happier. And I had the fancy truck and the house and the trailer and all that crap, and then it's nice, sure, but it until you get right with self and who you are, and none of that matters. None of it matters. And the last episode I was listening to, you guys were laughing about, it made me laugh about the performative, the guys with the long hair and the patchouli smell, and haven't showered in days, and going for that vibe, and sure, give her, but it's like, none of that stuff matters. You just need to get right with self, and it doesn't matter how many books you read or how many ceremonies you do or whatever. It's just, at some point you just gotta strip it all back and strip it all away and just sit with self. And that's just my opinion and my view. And I love a good deep dive on self.
It sounds like stripping all of that stuff away and taking the path that's a little less traveled these days has shown you your own resilience, because like so many people are just going into the psychedelics and thinking that's the be all and end all. But and knowing you and bringing in a little bit of the understanding of your journey, it's like once you put that aside and just went like really simple, it's like, sweat lodge, like no substances, nothing external, like going into a framework, like a supportive system in which you can dive into yourself without the need of any substance. It's like, it seems like that's been really when the transformation happened for you.
Sobriety changed everything. Sorry, this thing. Sobriety changed everything for me. There's no doubt about it. That I was always sort of chipping away at something or microdosing this, or I'll never not smoke pot or whatever. And it couldn't be more far from the truth right now. Like there's nothing that I would. I've got all that crap there still, and I just haven't gotten rid of it because it just doesn't appeal to me anymore. I just haven't. But it's like, none of that is never, and that's just me. That's just my story. But it took a long time to get here. Let's be honest. Like it took a long time to get here, and it took a long time to understand that for me, quiet and community and just good people and just a simple life. That's it. A simple life. I live a very simple life. I'm not a big guy. Like I don't have a big, big. I live very quietly. I live very humbly. I like the lake. I work a little bit here and there, and I got an old cat, sitting here, and happy. I'm happy. I don't need much anymore, and that has been the biggest shift. I always thought, well, like even when I met Adam, I remember when I met him, I'm like, oh, this guy's cool. He's got all the tattoos. I want that tattoo. Anyway, and it's like, like I don't need anything anymore other than just showing up for my kid in a good way, just the other day she says, we kind of got into it. She's 10, and the attitude these days in these kids is insane. And I love this kid,
Yeah.
but she's got the entitlement of like, yeah, well, why don't I get to, like, this is up for debate? I'm like, it's not like it. I mean, I'm a little bit of an old school parent, and it's kind of like, anyway, it's a different topic. But we got into it the other day, and I was like, you have this belief that Dad's going to be there and just save everything, make everything okay. And she just looked at me and I was like, yeah. And I was like, wow, that's kind of a lot to live up to. But it's I would never want a better role. Like I would never want a better, my parents were, very challenging, and never showed up in the way that, she's like, Dad, you're always apologizing. And it's like, yeah, like, yeah, I know your dad never apologized. I know. Yeah. But it's like, you just don't get it, kid. Like, it's just, anyway. So it's just, I work hard to be a good man in the world. And it's not so much about what I can get. It's what I can give, and that's a big shift for me. And it was funny because my kid does martial arts, and they were doing that, like, it's like, take in with one and give with the other kind of deal. And he was explaining it this way. And I was like, yeah, this is like a huge revelation here. Like, I'm just having a moment of like, it's no longer like it's bring it in, but then give it out. And it's like, I have done things and got to where I'm at in a place where I'm happy and content. And maybe somebody wants to hear a few things. Maybe they don't. I mean, I feel like I've rambled here. I'm, I was a little nervous this morning, but
not at all.
It's a good, it's no good to get it if you don't get it,
Yeah.
And,
share it.
Yeah. And there's no point, like, what is that? Adam would know this better than I would, but those who have it don't say it, or those who say it don't have it, or whatever. Like, it's so true. Like, you're going around squawking and blah, blah, blah. And the robe on, and you got the attire, but there's no substance to it. You spend 6 minutes with you, and that there's no substance. It's just, you're going through the motions, right? And at some point you got to stop the motions, and they just got to, take some time to look at self. And I couldn't be more blessed and more happy to be given the opportunity. I roll into 51 this week. I've just talked the whole time, but I'll just one second. I'm rolling into 51 this week, and who would have thought that, the guy who, whatever, lived his life is now in the place where it's just contentment, simplicity, and good people. And that's it. I've got my handful of people that I love, and they love me, and I know that. And I was away this weekend with this woman and one of the friends' husbands, and she's like, I don't know the other Dan. I don't know any other Dan. I've only known you from your sobriety over the last year. And so for you to say these things is weird to me, because it's just like, I only know this Dan. And it's like, yeah, well, I'm happy with this Dan. I'm happy with the man that I've become. And I think that men need men. I think that men, there's a lot of, well, maybe I should just stop a minute, but toxic masculinity, it's a thing. It's a real thing. And, men showing up for men in a way that allows, I don't want to say weakness. That's not the right word at all, but like,
vulnerability.
There you go. Yeah. But yeah, exposure, like just, like just real raw. And I've learned from these men about, this one guy says that men are the ones that make the world unsafe. So it's up to us to make the world safe. And it's like, that's it. My job is to make people feel safe and to make everyone that I cross safe. And if somebody needs something that I can offer my assistance with, I will. And I just want to, just show up in the best way that I can. All right. Sorry. Sometimes I get a little rambly.
No, there's a lot of good nuggets in there. And I got something I'm curious about, but Dan, where it's it sounds like you've suffered, right, a lot in the past. I don't necessarily need to get into that, but then you've also suffered in a constructive way with the sweat lodge or the fasting. And so I guess I just want your perspective on both, right? Like, obviously I think suffering is a part of the human condition. Like we're going to suffer in some way, shape, or form, regardless, right? And so I think you just got a beautiful perspective on both sides of it, right? And so what are your takeaways from kind of the both perspectives of suffering, before and then now in your sobriety, and just what do you think about that?
Well, one is self-inflicted avoidance, and that would be, the addiction or whatever you use or whatever you choose to, everybody's addicted to something. There's nobody out there today that's not addicted to something. And most of it, let's be honest, is their phones. But, addiction porn's a huge one for men, anyway, it doesn't matter. But everybody's addicted to something in some way, in some form, but it comes at a price, and it comes usually in a ways and a means of avoidance, in my opinion. And then when you shift that and you suffer to be a better, stronger, more in tune, more present man, in my situation, a man, then, you're doing it with intention, you're doing it with purpose, and you're doing it with reason. And it's a good kind of suffer,
like community minded, because you're becoming better to offer yourself.
100%. And it's a completely different avenue of going at it. Like I seek it, I like the hard stuff. I like the challenge. I love being called out, and I mean in a constructive way, but, yeah. And then, in the past, suffering is all about, we create our own suffering. I mean, that's Buddha's, human nature. Like we create our own suffering, and the world is suffering, and it's all a matter of what you choose to do with it and how you choose to look at it. And I think perspective is everything. This is the other thing that, like, the world is a beautiful place if you have the right glasses on. It can be dark and dismal and disgusting and horrible if you choose to wear those glasses, so what you feed yourself is how it goes. You talk to the forest. I'm a barefoot guy. I don't, it was made me laugh, that last one, but, as I'm listening to it, I'm walking up the side of a mountain in my bare feet, and, I'm an avid barefoot guy. Like, I don't wear shoes, I don't like them, and I don't need to, and that's just the last couple of years have just been like, you know what? I've always liked this. I'm just going to do it. And I don't care what you think. And that's new to me too, because I always was so insecure and so pleasing and this, and now it's like, I don't care. Oftentimes I'll just wear my earbuds so that I don't have to go, oh, you don't have any shoes on, But I often find that those who want to engage, because there are people that'll, murmur in the background, but those who want to engage are the people that I wouldn't mind, actually chatting with. And
they're fun. Curious about it.
Exactly. And they're asking in a good way. And I'm like, oh yeah, and it's funny because it's just like, but it's just a matter of, the more comfortable you find in yourself, and you guys have touched on this in the podcast, and I like this, the more comfortable you become in self, which is a long journey for all of us. It was for me. It was a long journey for me to be comfortable in self, and it progressed throughout the years. But I was saying to Adam just a while ago that, like, I didn't do a lot of things for a lot of years because I just simply didn't want to try. And I was afraid of failure. And I got my dad going, you're an idiot, you won't be able to do that. And, and just in the last little while, I've been doing like the just sort of odd job things and this and that. And they're like, can you do this? I'm like, oh yeah, no problem. And no idea what I'm doing, but it's you show up in a way where it's just like, I got this. I can do this. I got ChatGPT. I can do anything, YouTube, but it really is just about showing up. And if you don't know, then you go, you know what? I don't think I can do this, and anyway, it's interesting how my world has shifted. I was riding a dirt bike this weekend. I would have never done that even 3 years ago. And this thing was insane. It was crazy. It was scary. But I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And I didn't even question it. And I jumped on it and was like, yeah, let's do it. Cause I'm in my car standard. So I know the gears and either way, blah, blah, blah. But I wouldn't have done it years ago because I just would have been scared, or I would have I just didn't even think about it. And I was like, that's new. That's neat. That's great. And I'm just that there's a thing in the program. I'm not a huge AA guy, but I do go, and I see the relevance to it, and I see the importance of it. And I like the framework behind it much more than I do the actual meetings. But I understand why they're there and the importance for me to go, because, somebody shows up who is having a hard time and there's nobody there, he's gone on another run, but there's somebody there going, hey man, what's up? You want to sit down and have a chat? That's why I go, because it's not about me.
Cool.
Anyway, the framework behind it, and I lost my train of thought.
All good, man. One thing I wanted to ask is, or just touch on, you mentioned that critical voice in your head. You mentioned it's like your dad, and I think that's a relevant topic to touch on, because that's the case for me too. I think it's the case for a lot of men. It's like in my opinion, where the origin of that sort of performance-based self-esteem and needing to get validation from other men comes from. It's like ultimately just trying to get the validation from our first male role model, and the one that we absolutely could not make happy in many cases. So yeah, I just wanted to hear your perspective a little more on that, because I thought that was relevant when you mentioned it.
Well, smash it. Don't listen. Michael Singer, of course, is the king of, voice in your head and the horrible roommate. And
yeah,
the one voice that tells you something is a good idea also tells you that, no, you should go do this instead. And it's just, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to get to a place where you don't need to listen to that voice. It impacted my world in such a negative way for such a long time. I guess trying and doing, and then realizing, hey, I can do this. But then again, that came with all the rest of the work, because it's, you build some self-confidence, and then it's sort of a trickle down effect, right? You start feeling a little bit better about yourself, and then you start, I'm going to shift one sec, because Adam, one thing I always respected about Adam, I've known Adam for a few years, is when I met him, he was very disciplined, and self-discipline is something that even today, like in my birthday's rolling this week, and I was like, I'm going to really work on self-discipline this year. This is going to be my thing too. And in some ways I can do it. I can sit in a lodge and I can do those hard things and this and that, but like eating after 7:00, out the window, like that's where I lack. And I let myself down, and those things bother me. Adam's self-discipline was always so strong. And I think that is the key to overcoming a little yappy voice, or you don't have to listen. That's simply it. You don't have to listen. There's no truth. There's no value. If you took that voice and put it to a human physical form, you wouldn't be able to stand around that person for 3 minutes. Yeah. And so that's a good realization to go, you're an asshole. Why am I listening to you? And so it's just part of the process. It's all part of the process. I think the end game is we all try and get to the same goal. It's just how we get there. Stephen, you've talked a lot about your past and your upbringing, and good God, vengeful God. And, if I do this, I'm going to be, scared and sinful. Same thing.
I'm a bad boy. Yeah,
exactly. For years, I was terrified to do anything, like I can't touch my penis, but yeah. And then at 14, just funny little side joke, my mom's burning the magazines that I had found in the kitchen, and it started a big fire and anything. It's just like, this is really working. Anyway, it just made me laugh. But, it's just, I don't think anybody knows what they're doing. I really don't. I don't think anybody, and we had some talks this weekend, because raising kids is tough. Being a parent is tough. And I didn't know that my parents didn't know what the hell they were doing, and when that realization and that acceptance came along of like, yeah, he was an asshole, but he was just doing the best he could at the time. You know,
Yeah.
he was just showing up in the best way that he could. That was huge because everybody, you know, was, blah, 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 his fault, this and that. Like, no matter what the situation is, you play a part, you play a role. If you choose to look at your role, you will see things a little bit differently. And you know, realizing that my parents were just doing the best that they could, and realizing that I'm just doing the best that I can, and I'm working on myself to do the best I can. I'm lucky that I don't have to work full time, you know, because it just, I can see the challenges of working all day, you know, the stressful 9 to 5, in my opinion, BS. And then coming home and making dinner and doing all that. It's tough. It's tough. Like, I don't know how people do it. And so, especially single parents, you know, I commend single moms. Like, I think that we haven't touched on this, but I'm just going to say that one of the key points of my community and my world is respecting women. They're the life givers, and they need to be appreciated. They need to be respected. They need to be valued. And that is something that, in my opinion, is a non-negotiable. And if you don't agree with me and you need some support, or you're willing to accept some, not accept, but listen to some reasoning behind that, or some things behind that, then great, we can talk. But if not, then I'm sorry, but I'm out. You know, like that's just a non-negotiable. Because that's just the way my world works. And yeah.
No, agreed.
Powerful.
Yeah, I'm very lucky to come from a family of powerful women, right? My grandmother, the matriarch, my mom, I'm a youngest brother with an older sister, right? You know, it's just, women are amazing. And like you said, it's men's responsibility for the women that don't feel safe and that don't feel respected. Just because of the physical differences, right? Of just men are so much more capable of committing violence than women are. It's also our responsibility to, protect that, right? Protect the innocent, protect, the people that are not necessarily able to defend themselves, and, spiritually, mentally, and physically, right? All of it, like all the battles that comes with, right? It's not just physical necessarily. There's a lot of mental mind games going on, especially nowadays. But no, I 100% agree with you.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah, there's something else you touched upon too, Dan, that I really loved, where Adam and I kind of say it's like, don't trust anyone that acts like they have all the answers, right? And you said that, at the sweat lodge, that, I'm weak, I know nothing, or I'm pitiful, or maybe I'm paraphrasing that, but I wholeheartily agree with that. Sounds like you got some good leaders, because the people that act like they have all the answers, that's kind of how the cults start, and the things that the communities that aren't necessarily serving you, and and vice versa. Can you just touch a little bit more upon that? I really, really enjoy that quote.
Yeah, I'm pitiful and weak, and I know nothing. And I don't know what is there to touch on. It.
At first, you found it confusing, right? And then it clicked.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, coming from the man it comes from, I understand it and I get it. And he's an older man, and he's been around the block, and he's lived a hard life too. And that's the thing, is that all of these guys have, like, I'm like the youngest of all of them, pretty much, which is a bit odd, but these guys have lived lives, and they've experienced, and some of them 40 years, and some of them, a long time. And what was your question again, man? I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought here. I just kind of
no worries. Just the trend. You at first, I'm really interested in your transition, I guess, because the suffering was kind of a similar question, but the transition from you're like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? Like, this makes no sense, to being like, to having that message really resonate, because that, again, that's something, again, when we're as children, we see the adult, you think people that act like they know everything, those are the people you are supposed to trust. I found in life, it's like, no, I trust the people way more that openly admit and are vulnerable to the fact, like, hey, I know nothing, right? But I'm trying. And that's a person I find now in my life experience to be way more trustworthy than the person claiming that they have all the answers, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. I got you. Yeah. So this is a world, and my world is based off those people, again, I weighed this weekend and with these two men that are pillars in the community, and one is the leader. He's also like my best friend. I've known this guy for almost 30 years, and he's seen it all. And okay, I'm gonna get sidetracked here 1 sec. But
Yeah.
last year we were at the beach and we were talking and we're hanging out and my kid's doing her thing. Look what I can do, handstands and whatever. Yeah, just kid stuff, right? And we're just laughing and watching and we're chatting and his wife's there and she's like, how are things going? This and that, blah, blah, blah. And we're just chatting away. And he says, I've never met this Dan. And I just said, neither have I. And then it was just like one of those moments of just like, yeah, I've never met this guy either. And circling back to the small and pitiful, small and weak and pitiful, and I know nothing. In the sense of the world we live in and how we live and how we're meant to live and how we're supposed to live, I can only do the best I can. I can only show up in the way that I'm taught, in the way that I've seen these men. There's so much more power in a role model than somebody who's just yapping.
An example to look towards.
Living the example.
You see these men live these lives. You see how they treat their partners. You see how they treat their kids, and that's what I'm drawn to. Because being humble is your greatest teacher. I was riding a bike this weekend, the dirt bike this weekend, and I almost lost it. And instantly, you're like this big, But then the goal is to try again, and you try again a little more cautiously, and you just actions speak louder than words. That's a simple that's an AA term, but it's also just a basic life. I can tell you, but it's much better when I'm able to show you, and I know nothing in that sense, but I have a wealth of knowledge in the sense of like my world and my community and my people. But in the scheme of things, we're just little blips. We're little ants running around on an ant farm, and it's a big world we live in. There's a lot going on, and you guys know this. You're not dumb. You're two young, smart men who pay attention and try to make a difference. And that's the beauty, like for years, I've always thought about, what can I do or how can I be? And I was always like a money thing behind it. And the minute I stopped trying to get something out of it is when everything shifted for me. And so, it's a crazy ride. And I'm grateful to, it's worth the price of admission. I said that before. I like that. Because it's it's a tough price to pay. The first half of your life, like rough, suffering, bad relationships. I got a few things that I would like to work on, and I would like to try and heal, and I would like to try and correct over the years. But I can only do so much, and I'm unpacking. Like we carry around these suitcases. I've carried around these suitcases for a long, long time, and these limiting beliefs around. I can't do this. I can't do that. And then you just try a little bit. Like, I think that's a big problem for a lot of people is they just have this belief of like, this is who I am. This is how I am. And no way. Because anybody can shift that. Anybody can change that. And the goal is to just chip away at that. And, long road. Long road.
That's cool, man. And I've known you long enough now to see those big shifts. So I mean, I can observe that, and it's pretty cool. You're really, from my perspective, you're really living it now. You're really being that example.
Now a part of being that example. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's a good place to be, And I just it's an everyday thing. I always like to think of this thing of like. Think of somebody you really respect, somebody you really, really like, somebody you really respect, you value, you're sort of a role model sort of thing, and a lot of people ultimately go to, the big guy or JC or whatever. But cool. Think about if they were watching you do whatever you were doing. Would you do that? Would you do that?
Yeah.
Probably not. And so that's just, at the end of the day, I got to go to bed. I got to go to bed with myself, and I got to do a little bit of like, okay, did I act honorably? Is there anything that I need to clean up? Is there anything that I need to put away? And some days, yeah. And some days I'm up at 3 a.m. plotting angry emails, but other days I'm like, I did well. I'm going to sleep good tonight. I'm going to rest my head on the pillow knowing that I did the best I could today. And that's where the integral inner value of like, I did the best I could, and like not the best I could, like to look good or to be cool, but the best I could with the knowledge that I have passed down from these men and from my teachers. And yeah.
It's like not the best not necessarily the best in other people's eyes, because that doesn't matter. It's just the best in your own eyes. Like my grandpa used to say, the only person you got to be good with is the guy who's looking back at you in the mirror when you're shaving in the morning. That's all that matters. So
yeah.
That's cool.
What is that thing? The only people you have to impress is the 8-year-old version of you and the 80-year-old version of you. Like, that's it.
Yeah. I like that a lot.
Yeah. But again, it takes a lot to get there, and everybody is, well, not everybody, but a lot of people are stuck in that performative nature. This is why I love my community and my people, because nobody cares. Like, I wear shorts all the time. I don't wear shoes. Nobody's like, you got to put shoes on. Nobody cares. They just accept me for who I am. They like that. We all drink lots of coffee and this and that. And nobody's criticizing. Oh, you shouldn't do that. It's like, cool. That's your jam. Cool. Bring it on. Bring it over. Like, we were away this weekend with all these people, and I still put salt in my water. This Adam's thing years ago, and I still put salt in my water. And one of the people was like, "You do that?" Yeah. And I was like, "Yeah, I just, I just pee out the rest. It's just, I don't need it, whatever." But it was never like, it's just like, oh, cool. Well, why? What's the value? Not like, it's not like there's no performative nature. And when you can find your people that are like, the band of misfits, then like, your goal. Like, I don't have to perform anything. I can sit around with my shirt off and be comfortable and not, like I just, and that's where the gold is. That's where the prize of like, I've won in life. I don't have to show up in a way that's not authentic and not real. And that's winning, that, in my opinion, that's winning. And I'm lucky to, if I was to go tomorrow, and I don't want to, but I'd be okay with it, because I'm at a place of like, I've done what I can. I've shown up in the best way that I can. And, again, my friend here, my old man, well, not old man, but my old friend, and his dad was a big AA guy, and but he lived his life in gratitude, for gratitude, but he would always say, there's just enough time to become the man you want to be. And, yeah, I'm good with that. I'm good with that. And I feel good about that. And I feel confident about that. And it never ends, but you get to a place where you are happy with who you are. And,
where you're okay.
Right. And that's just, there's nothing better. I mean, you give me a new car, I wouldn't trade it. I love my 2009 5-speed little go-kart, it's not going to make me happy anymore. I know that stuff is great and nice, but I also know that my happiness comes from, the amount of time I get to put my feet up at the beach. Watching
in the community you found, man, it's like, it's that's the advice we hear from every direction, is like, always comes back to community. And like, why wouldn't it? It makes perfect sense, and it's a beautiful thing to be living that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's a lot of the challenge of the world. And I've done many different groups over the years, many different men groups, many different, supposedly supportive groups and these kind of things. And sadly, what the highest suicide rate is, male men. I can't remember the numbers, 30 or 50 or whatever it is, but, that's sad. That's tough. And that's just because they don't have anybody, you know?
Yeah.
Dad said men don't cry, you know, blah, blah, blah. Like, I mean, we're slowly shifting from that, and I'm very grateful for all of that, and I'm grateful to see all that. But I think maybe we're shifting a little too far. But anyway, that's okay. But it
balance, right?
Well, 100%. But it's sad that there's men out there walking alone, you know, because men need men. Men need community, men and women, but, you know, men need men to heal. And I think that that's basically a non-negotiable. Yes, we need women too, but, you know, men need men to heal. Men need to have these conversations with men about, you know, whatever you can. And
Yeah.
you know, another thing is get rid of your secrets. If you're walking around with secrets, you're done. You can't have that. You can't have that chirping away in the back of your head. You know, you've got to get rid of that, and in whatever way. You know, I mean, again, I'm resorting back to AA, but there's like a step 4 and a 5, and you write down all your bad shit that you've done over the years, and then you tell somebody about it. And again, don't love the way it's worded, the way it's formulated. You know, there's a couple things about defects of character and blah, 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 whatever. It's fine. I don't nitpick. I get the basis of it, and that's what I'm going to go for. And that's the work that I love, you know, clear away the wreckage of the past. And that's what it's all about, is just to be at peace with whatever's happened. I haven't lived the greatest life. I haven't done the best things. I haven't been the best husband. I haven't been the best dad. I haven't been the best friend, you know, but I'm not going to carry that with me any longer. You know, I'm not going to carry the bag of like, I am this guy. No, I'm not. This guy. And, you know, yeah, today I'm this guy. And yeah, it takes work, and it takes time, and it takes energy, and it takes, you know, guys doing this stuff, and men showing up for men, and holding space, you know, allowing the vulnerability and showing the vulnerability. Like, I used to be so ashamed of being, you know, I'm going to use old man dad version, but the wimpy kid, you know, and the sensitive kid, and, you know, the fat ginger in the corner crying, you know, it was tough growing up. But just because I had, you know, yeah, if you weren't so fat, you wouldn't have so many problems. Yeah, well, I am. So you know what? Like, let's deal with that. But to just, anyway, I lost my train of thought. Go on.
No, men need other men. I 100% agree.
Yeah.
You know, and it's to, yeah, my I mean, you know, my personal examples in my own life growing up weren't great. My coaches were nuts. You know, my dad was, you know, functioning alcoholic. My brother was an asshole. Have great relationships with both now. But, you know, it's like, you know, I was always searching for a good example. I'm still searching for great examples of, you know, men I respect in my life and you know, can learn from, you know, always keeping that student mentality, even if I'm teaching others something, or, you know, but always remembering I'm a student as well. And, no, I wholeheartedly agree with that. It's not talked about a lot, you know, it's not, yeah, men are often in their silos, right? Or, you know, figure it out for yourself, or, you know, lone wolf it, or any of that sort of stuff. And,
yeah,
I mean, you see the ramifications on society, especially in America. I know, you know, Canada doesn't have to deal with it nearly as much, but you know, the shooters going into, you know, schools and churches and all that stuff. It's like those are all lost men, just completely gone off the deep end, right? And you know, it's like if they had a role model or someone to stop and talk to them or listen to them, right, just what they're going through, it's like, would that be the case? Would there be so many of those young men? And not that it's, you know, I'm not saying that like the horrible crimes that you see over and over again are okay, but it's just like to have a little bit of empathy from where those men are coming from, and just to understand and hopefully to root out the cause and to stop that sort of behavior, right?
Yeah, that's how it's solved, right? Is actually understanding them, not just othering and demonizing.
Yes.
And
yeah.
I feel like so much of like what you guys are both talking about, so much of this work here is going inward, because what I've seen, and this was reflected in my old job when, you know, Dan, you're mentioning suicide rates in men, and it's like, you know, it's very high in first responders, and that conversation was coming more to the forefront, you know, talking about mental health, talk to somebody instead of just, you know, going and killing yourself. Talk about it before it becomes a problem.
Drinking,
Talk about it instead of just drinking away the problems. And what I noticed a lot, including myself, is like, we're all saying like, yeah, I would love to show up for you. I you know, why aren't these guys coming to talk to me when they're having a problem? Like everyone's really quick to jump and go outside themselves and offer help to others, but nobody is asking for that help because everyone doesn't want it, still doesn't, even though we're having the conversations about it now, like they didn't used to, you know, maybe 20 years ago, everyone still is not willing to accept that they have a problem and talk about it. So it's like, if I want to help other men, I got to help myself first, and I got to be vulnerable first. I got to like get that ball rolling before anybody else is going to feel comfortable to come and open up. You know, it's like if we're talking about being leaders in that space, because everyone's sitting around going like, yeah, you know, like it'd be great to talk about this stuff. It would be so amazing if we could be vulnerable and open with each other. And then after that conversation's over, everything just goes silent and it stays silent. That was my experience in the fire service. That was my experience just being a man in this world. You know, up until fairly recently, experiencing that kind of thing, and like having that perspective. And now I've come to understand, it's like, yeah, if we really want to help others, we got to help ourselves first. And then it's like, it's that service to our highest self that then spills over into a natural form of service that comes in its own unique way for each individual. But it absolutely shows up, but it takes that first step. And that's the scariest part, is going into that vulnerability and being open ourselves first, as far as I see it.
Yeah, I think once you do that little bit of, well, not a little bit, but you do that work, then you then create, you know, how do I word this? An opening. Like we've all met the people that you meet and you're like, whoa, that guy's got something, like, you know, that there's just something in there that I want, you know, and it's just based off of how they show up. And it's sort of like an openness and a balance of the masculine and feminine. And, you know, like those are the powerful people, you know, the so-called showmen and this and that, but like the real ones, you know, I don't know if you guys have met quite a few in my day. And, you know, you meet these people and you're like, wow, you know, like that's, yeah. And so you can see when they've done the work, like you can feel it. And so, you know, along our path, we're shown lots of teachers, and some are, you know, for the time, and some are for the long haul, and you know, but yeah, you can feel it, and you those are the people that we need to be in it. Again, I want to say you guys are doing it. You know, you're showing up in a good way regularly, and there's quite a few episodes there, and you're doing your best, you know, and I think that's great. Like, it's amazing. I in a sense, there's a bit of envy, because after a while, I mean, the nerves are gone. I'm feeling a little more calm now. I feel like I just jabbered the whole time. I don't know what the hell I said, but that's okay. But like, it's, you know, you can get to the good stuff, and you can get down to like the important things, and you can formulate your thoughts a little better and get into the good stuff, because people need to hear this stuff. People need to hear the journey and the healing and the way that the other thing is that there's a way out. That's a big thing. Like, you know, whatever you're going through, whatever you're going through, there's a million guys. This is why, you know, the again, AANA, the whole program thing is good, because no matter what you've done, that guy's done worse, you know, and that's okay. And there's no like, I don't care. Like, there's no comparison, you know, there's no, oh, well, I did it. Yeah. Whatever. Cool. Great. And just, let people be, like, you know, everyone's got a past, right? Especially when you roll into 50, you know, like I'm 51, and anyone that I meet that is in my general area or range, or, you know, whatever, has baggage, has things, has had stuff to deal with, death, parents, you know, all this stuff. It's hard. It's tough. Life is not easy sometimes. And, you know, another thing they say in the lodge is just a simple prayer of like, it's hard down here, help us, you know? Couldn't be more simple.
Yeah.
Like, why does it have to be this big, long, drawn out thing? You got a 20-minute sermon and then you're going to get the body of Christ. Sure, whatever. If that works for you, go for it. But like, on the other hand, we're sitting in a circle, you know, putting out our best intentions, going, it's hard down here, help us. That's it. That's cool. You know, that's it. It's simple. And anyway.
Yeah.
I think there's formative nature and things where it doesn't need to be.
Yeah. It's simple and it's real, because that performative nature, it's like, like we're kind of joking about talking about in that last episode, talking about how if we show up and there's a man who's wearing, like you said, wearing the attire and saying all the right things, and like and talking the talk about being a leader of a men's group or whatever, or a men's retreat. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they're saying all the right buzzwords and they're wearing they're wearing the right getup. It's like, you can feel it. You can feel the inauthenticity or the authenticity based on whatever's being carried in their vibration. It's like, you can't fake it. And that's the thing. Like, that's why those situations always end up going off the rails. It goes into some sort of weird cult thing or money grab. And it's like, the truth always comes out, again, like the Buddha said, three things can't long be hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth. And that's why, like, we have no choice but to authentically walk this path. We ultimately come to the realization that we have no choice but to do it authentically if we want to get somewhere. And like you said, there's always a way out. I've been thinking about that. It's interesting you said it. I've been thinking about that recently, because I've been chatting with a few guys, buddies of mine, that are like still on the job that I used to do. And they're going through it, man. And like, that's something that comes up. I'm like, there is a way out. No matter how bad it seems, there is absolutely always a way out. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Just smash the ego too, right? This, I got to be this. I have to do this. I have to be this for, or I'm not a real man or whatever. Come on.
Yeah.
That's,
exactly.
that's just dangerous. And that's an episode right there. But I mean, you could talk forever on ego and male. Yeah. And it's just sad, it is, it's our world. And again, it's shifting, and I'm grateful for that. But I think that, more men showing up for more men in a world that isn't Instagram based, or like, like, stop recording everything for that. Like, just do it, do it without anything behind it. Just show up in a good way to just show up in a good way for the trickle down effect of life. That's it. That's where the goal is. Again, my opinion, that's where the goal is. And that's what's worked for me. And that's what's made me happy, is showing up in a good way, and not, for a long time I thought about, well, I could do this or I could do that, and I could be rich in this and do this. And then, it's not authentic. It's not real, because I'm trying to get something out of it. And
the outcome based approach, rather
yeah,
than
100%. And more attachment based. Like, you guys have talked about this, and I love this, about attachment to the outcome. Like, that's my kind of new thing, is like, oh yeah. And I noticed it in, not that I'm judging or anything, but a lot of people, they want, I mean, especially dating. I'm trying to do this whole dating thing, and oh my God, what a fucked up world. Anyway, everybody, and I like this stuff you guys are talking about the last one. Well, because I bought you dinner, then I should, get this. And it's like, well, no, that's, you're just, yeah. Anyway, the world, yeah, it's shameful, and it's sad that it's an exchange. It's not an exchange. And my exchange is the time and the value, and the benefit I get from learning from you is the exchange that it should be. And that's I'm going to fill my cup from your cup, and we're going to go back and forth. And then we're going to go out into the world. And today I'm going to take my kid to the lake and have a great day. And she's going to have fun. And I'm going to sit and laugh and just enjoy myself. And, that's because I did this and I feel good. And I'm going to go for a little walk. And, yeah, connect to whatever it is that you believe. And I think that that's important. Whatever you believe is, you want to believe in God, then believe in God. Do you want to believe in the cat on the couch, then believe in the cat on the couch, as long as it's not, causing any harm. And I like the fact that you guys have talked a lot about, if God was watching us now, he'd be pissed off. He doesn't want this shit, he doesn't want this. He wants everybody to get along and be kind and be happy, and not worship. Oh, we're all, I think that it's time for some changes, and I'm happy to see you guys showing up in a good way, and thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Dan, thank you. You know, we really appreciate your time and taking the time to talk with us. This was awesome. I really, really appreciate your thoughts and your life experience and sharing that with everybody. I'm sure I got a lot out of it, so I'm sure others will too. Folks, if you like what you heard, please like, comment, subscribe, share Dan's story if you think someone will get some value out of it. And Dan, any closing thoughts for people today before we sign off? Something you want to leave people with?
Show up in a good way, you know, like, hold the door for that person, do it like longer so they got to run for it. That's the funny part. But like, you know what, just show up in a good way. Just show up in a good way and without an expectation behind it. And that's it, you know, just
Cool.
Take quiet time, 5 minutes, anything, away from your phone, away from anything. Just, there's a lot of power in silence and in quiet. And thank you guys.
Awesome.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much. And folks, we'll catch you next week. And until then.
Cheers.